enigma,
conflict,
anomaly,
contradiction,
inconsistency,
mystery,
puzzle,
oddity,
absurdity,
impossibility,
ambiguity,
conundrum.
Welcome to the grand finale, the final episode of season 2. This is episode 7, Anti-Racism in Action, Deconstructing and Dismantling the Black Paradox. Last week, we had the annual conference, the second annual conference for all of the team. It was all looking around the Black Paradox. And if you missed it, you missed a treat. But today, we're going to be deconstructing and dismantling it and unpacking what is the Black Paradox. Today we've got a little bit of a different format. We're mixing it up because it's the last episode of the season. And thank you everyone for joining us. I was really pleased to be hosting one of the breakout sessions, and I think everybody in the session I was in has been a regular viewer of season 2, probably season 1 by the looks of it, of these live streams. So thank you so much for joining us. I wonder if the team can join us in a second. It's we've got 3 of the exec directors of the Black FE Leadership Group with us today. We've got Amajit, one of you could join us in the studio. Robin, one of you can join us in the studio. And Stella, I wonder if you could join us as well. Hey everyone, how are you?
Hi Gavin, how you
Hi.
doing?
Good, thanks, Gavin. Good.
Hi, Gavin. Janet would have been here, but he's on a plane on his way to India. So
I didn't want to highlight just how jealous I am about him being away on holiday at the moment in India and on the plane. Not the journey that he's going to probably have in a minute, but I thought it was really nice to be able to have all 4 of you on the opening video there. I wanted to sort of kick things off because if anyone wasn't able to attend the event yesterday, I think it would be really good to maybe Amajit, because you're right next to me on the top of the screen there. If you could maybe explain the concept of the Black Paradox and its impact on society, just for everyone in the audience just to be able to understand what we mean by the Black Paradox.
Yeah, I'll certainly try, and Stella and Robin, feel free to chip in. I think as we shared at the conference, over the last 12, 15 months, we've had hundreds and hundreds of conversations, the length and breadth of the UK, involving organisations, individuals, thought leaders, and so on. And something kept coming back to us. And it's interesting that you started with the opening video, because I think we used every single one of those words in our reflections at some point over the last 12 months, because the paradox as we define it, the Black Paradox, is that first of all, Black people enter this world with no sense of inequality, inadequacy, and actually, despite wherever the starting points are, they do really well at a young age, and you know the stats because you've been part of this journey with us, Gavin. But more or less all Black groups do well through compulsory education, and then things go askew in all spheres of society. And when we looked and delved deeper over the last 12 months by looking at the evidence, but also pursuing, I think, the conversations, whether it's the fact that it's UK PLC, the business world, you've got anomalies in the context of Black businesses are more important than ever before, especially in a post-Brexit era. And yet it's tougher for those organizations to get access to business support and networking. You've got some of the world's most innovative, dynamic businesses led by Black CEOs, and you've got barely any Black leaders on the FTSE 100. And then you go into the public sector. I mean, if you accused any of the public sector to be compromising their social mission, they would be very offended. But you look at the data and the profiles and the metrics by which they judge their social missions are just tend to be based on their customer base, not their leadership or their governance and so on. Why should that be? And this why should this be became a recurring theme, and you will see it as part of the conference. And then we looked at the whole of the UK, and you had the anomaly that actually the least diverse parts of UK society are invariably more ambitious than the conurbations in the context of race equality. And then quite clearly, we sort of peeled away at what happens in the school sector, university sector, the training sector. The stats just reel off. And then there was further conundrums, which is that we've arguably got the most significant high-profile Black representation in politics and in cultural and sporting life and so on. But in some cases, it's not made an iota of difference with regards to progress on race equality. And to compound it all, we finish off with, the notion that when Black leaders come into power, they're very reticent to raise the issue of race. So this isn't simply about representation. It's about inequalities that impact all spheres of society, private sector, public sector, the four sectors, all phases of education. And people from a very, very positive base actually lose the opportunity to fulfill their potential. And the impact of that is on the economy, on society. And that's going to become even more, sort of critical as we go forward. So in a nutshell, we sort of arrived at, this notion of a paradox. It's a contradiction.
Yep.
And contradictions, and the reason why it's into challenges, it's the contradictions are so taken for granted. They're so embedded. They're so unchallenged. If someone doesn't challenge them, they become institutionalized for another 400 years.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that leads to a couple of questions that you've sort of poised there, really, Amajit. And Robin, I wonder if I could bring you in around to unpack that a bit more, to maybe illustrate how the Black Paradox, how it plays out across, because we've over the everyone's been following the live stream seasons, we've gone across the nations, we've gone across regions, but also sectors. So maybe if you could illustrate how you see the Black Paradox plays out across sectors and nations. I just think it'd be really helpful to get different dimensions really on this, so people can get a head around it really.
Well, the policy paper Inclusive Britain was published today, Gavin, which is coincidental because all of us remember when the disparity report was published by the government, and it was completely trashed by credible people because it had no substance. The position the government tried to put forward was that there was no institutional racism in Britain, and yet their own policy paper, Inclusive Britain, published today, has set out a number of areas which they want to target to make sure that the experience of ethnic minority Britons is improved. Therefore, obviously, if they're trying to improve something, they're admitting there is institutional racism at play. So, for example, let's take the biggest area of interest in the last 2 years since COVID hit us, the National Health Service. The National Health Service has two challenges: an underrepresented workforce, not reflecting modern Britain, and also it has quite clear evidence that COVID has hit minority ethnic communities hardest, especially those from South Asian backgrounds. So one of the key aims of the Inclusive Britain report is to find out why that is. And to me, it's almost a bit like this sort of Sir Humphrey approach to government. We have a problem, and yet the first instinct is to try and set up a new committee to investigate it when we've got copious evidence already. I think one of the issues that I think illustrates this most clearly, and Amajit alluded to it, was that we've got two areas of the United Kingdom, the four nations. Scotland and Wales have explicit ambitions to be anti-racist nations. And we at the BLG are working with the Welsh government on focusing on further education to put together, well, not to put together, but to help them understand better the race equality action plan they need to achieve that. So there we have two areas which are amongst the least ethnically diverse in the country, leading the way on tackling this, because it's not just a numbers issue, it's a culture issue, and they understand that if government isn't in the lead, nothing will change. So I hope that gives a flavour of where we're at. We know that there are lots of other pieces of evidence, but I think the NHS is the real sharp focus for us because of the last 2 years of trauma for the whole nation.
Yeah, Stella, you've been so patient. I wonder if I could bring you in as well. I think Robin raised a really good point around nations, regions, but also sectors, organisations, and individuals. What do you see as the main challenges of the Black Paradox and how these can impact nations? Because we very recently, like Robin saying around Scotland and Wales, Northern Ireland was just the previous episode. I've really enjoyed that episode. And what do you see as the main challenges, nations, regions, sectors, organisations, and individuals sort of moving forward for the Black Paradox, Stella?
Okay. Thanks, Gavin, for that. I'm going to take this in a different direction, because our conference last week was showcasing those who are actually challenging the Black Paradox, who are saying this must not be, and who recognise or who have come along come along with us on this journey, and who are now presenting challenges. And we showcased some of these at the conference last week. We had Vaughan Gethin, who's the Minister for the Economy from Wales, who was our keynote, who gave the keynote address, who spoke powerfully about why was that in response, the question that the paradox, why it is that Wales is leading the way. He said, yes, we are a small country, but we recognise that racism exists. And he spoke powerfully about what they were doing, about the action plan that Robin has already alluded to. He talked about being a black, being a black minister and a black politician, and standing up to be counted, and what he is actually doing in office as being part of this. And another showcase, when we think about individuals, Catherine Robson, who's the chief executive of Adult Learning Wales, she leads the organisation that provides all adult learning in Wales, and she spoke from an individual perspective, and it was really interesting to hear her say that at about 32, until she was 32, 34, she had never met a black person or come close to a black person in Wales, being born in Pembrokeshire. But she, after the murder of George Floyd, she set out to find out what it means to be a black person in Wales, and she really took this seriously. And she talked to people and really challenged herself, and she is truly an inspiration, and she shared her thoughts and how she went to ask her students, how she asked her staff. She got live experiences. She went out and became a trustee of the race equality organization in Wales. So that was an individual, and she has come a really long way in terms of how she has transformed her organization through actually understanding and setting out to understand what's going on there. There were other showcases, people who are challenging. So we have the allies, we have people, we had at the conference Basingstoke College with Anthony Bravo as the principal, and David Moy, who's a white colleague, who's actually a finance director, finance and resources, and in the college there, he's leading the race equality challenge and the affiliation with BFELG, and they both showcased what that college is actually doing, with great support of their governing body, of the chair of governors, and also we heard from college, Audrey Cumberford, who you remember, Audrey and Jim Metcalf. They were on this. They were here in episode. I believe it was in season 1, talking about how they are taking forward this whole agenda in Scotland, and they spoke about their ambitions. So we have come a long way, and they've spoken about how they're coming along in challenging this black paradox, saying that this must not be. And they are great allies and great advocates of BFELG, and they are using our 10-point plan. All these organizations are using the 10-point plan, as indeed in Wales, they want to use that 10-point plan in particular to look at the curriculum, the vocational curriculum in Wales.
Yeah, no, I think it was. I think the conference was really, really interesting around the different perspectives and views that you was able to show. I think it's also sort of, the streams have also been really great where it's gone around to build that, and it's sort of the conference yesterday brought all that all together. I just thought it was really, really, really good. Array that we see in progress, but at the same time, there's such a massive challenge. I mean, Robin, I wonder if we could bring you in, because from the very get-go, this has all been around how do we overcome systemic racism, and I think it's the challenge really because I had a really interesting breakout session. And sorry, Stan, I gave you a list about this long in the outcomes of our session, because it was just so much. What do you see, Robin, as one of the main challenges, particularly for Black people, in their role in overcoming systemic racism?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Gavin, but it's an important area because what Stella mentioned was the leadership shown by Vaughan Geckin in Wales. Now, there was in our conference a reference in the presentation to an issue that arose when Barack Obama was president of the United States. That he didn't take the lead on anti-racism that many Black people hoped he would, and I think that's a common issue in leadership. There's a saying in that we used in the old Network of Black Professionals, and we use still now. When you get to the top, you have to leave the ladder down, right? It's important that you don't become mute and deaf to things that you experience personally, and that you use your leadership voice to make changes. That doesn't mean that Black people are solely responsible, but there is a responsibility inherent in being one of the first to show that you are taking this seriously, and not to make the presumption that you got there purely by your own efforts. So I think one of the challenges for Black leaders in particular, and that's leadership at all levels really, is that you have to remember that the challenges you faced on your way up will be faced by people following you, and you need to be part of providing support and solutions, and challenge as well. You need to challenge the status quo. And that doesn't necessarily mean putting your neck on the block, but it does mean standing up to be counted in the way that Vaughan Geffin was talking about. You know, you're not going to solve the problem on your own, but collectively, and that's why the Black Leadership Group is so important. You know, we do provide a collective voice so that people don't have to take personal risk. But the bottom line is that with our allies, with our white allies, we want to change the status quo, and it's not going to be done without showing a bit of courage.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, yeah, go on, Stan.
I was just going to jump in there because at the conference, and it was really interesting that there's this theme about Black people didn't create the system. So it's the white people who created it that need to dismantle it. And then there's another theme that says, Black people, you need to dismantle this. That in itself is a paradox, because, you know, everyone's saying, well, whose responsibility? But it just speaks beautifully to what Robin just said about it's ourselves and our allies together. This is a collaborative effort, and very much why the session, Gavin, that you were at our conference, it was about collaborative leadership for change. How do we all work together to dismantle this issue that's been 500 years in the making?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I really enjoyed the session I was in. I really enjoyed it because there's so many different things that were covered. But I think what was the main thing that really sung to me is that it's collective. Everyone together has to work together to be able to make impactful change. And it was interesting around saying, this come out time and time again. The themes that have come through for me that in our session was around, if you say nothing, you're endorsing, injustice. Do you know what I mean? So if there's situations that happen, and we had quite an extreme, opening point around, the strip search of in a school, and it just really jarred everyone, as it should. And I think that was really interesting. But at the same time, there was people that were saying, I want to be a role model, but also at the same time, I don't want to be seen to be a troublemaker. I don't want to be seen to be difficult. And I thought that was it's a paradox again. Like, how do you do change around at the same time implementing change? And I think he's saying that, how do we sort of move that across? Stella, I know you was chairing all of the sort of the summary of all the different sessions, and I wanted to see if we could go around the table a bit, or the rooms around what was maybe your favourite part of the conference, around the breakouts or the sessions. Stella, what was your favourite part, or the thing that resonated most with you from the conference?
I know you're referring me to the round tables, but I think for me it was the top, the presentation on the Black paradox, and the opposite, at the opposite end was the provocation keynote by the provocation keynotes there by Rosemary Campbell Stevens. So that the bookends. Here is the provocation. Here's this paradox. And then at the end, she spoke about this paradox powerfully. And the two aspects coming together to really, for me, caused me to think about our next steps as BFELG, as the Black Leadership Group now. How do we put that paradox alongside the changes that we need to make within ourselves, within the different sectors, to take responsibility and to stand up, because we know that, as Amajit said earlier on, we were not born thinking we were disadvantaged. We were not born as okay. There's a racist. There's a world out there. We were born and raised as people of worth, people of great potential, people with community and history, and then the Black paradox creeps in. And how it is then that we create a world where our children, our nephews, our nieces, our grandchildren do not carry that paradox forward.
Yeah,
I know it's a long answer, but it was sort of like
a
way of pulling it all together for me. And to be honest, Gavin, I'm still reflecting on this. I haven't really thought it through.
Yeah, I think it's the conference and the sessions have been emotive. So it sort of stirs something up, doesn't it? You know, from but sometimes have been having to be buried, and it's sort of sometimes it's also good to be reflective on that as well, isn't it? Amajit, from looking at the conference, looking at the sessions, I was going to say about the breakouts, but overall, what was it that resonated most for you?
I'm just going to feed off Stella's metaphor there of the bookends. I don't know about you, but whenever I've had a pair of bookends, they all fall over. They both fall over unless you've got some sort of structure and some sort of strand that pull it together. And my takeaway was the notion of cultural competence. Right? For me, that was the big takeaway. Whether you're individual as a leader, whether you are part of a collective, collaborative, whether you are organization, you've got to develop the capability, but also the curiosity to be culturally competent.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, a real signal, spotlight of hope. Leadership programs, student curriculum, qualifications, governance. Society needs to embrace a critical skill. For me, a key skill for this century has got to be cultural competence.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Robbie, what was your favourite session from the conference last week?
Well, Stella's stolen my two options. I'm going to talk about the presentation by Basingstoke College of Technology, because I thought that was a really powerful presentation, and it set the tone for the day. Because we years ago, when I was running the network of Black professionals, I met a guy called Derek Anderson. He was chief executive of Lambeth Council. Very, very deep thinker, very effective chief executive of a tricky job. And he did exactly what Anthony Bravo did. He nominated his finance director to be the champion. And both of them have got a very thorough forensic approach to a very difficult problem as a result. Because I thought the context that they set out was honest, brutally honest, in fact. That they thought they were doing fine. The data said they were doing fine, but actually just peeling back a few layers, and they found out they weren't doing so fine. But they were honest enough and brave enough to share that, not to hide it. And they've set in train a really comprehensive process to address it. And they've got their staff and their students and their board working together. And I think that's a really great example of cultural change in an organization. So that was my favorite.
Yeah, just a quick one on that. I agree with every word that you've said there, Robin, and I thought that was a fantastic sort of spotlight case study. But there's something else at play there, particularly with David, which is the emotion and his own lived experience journey through all of that change process, there was a higher level of influence beyond the metrics and so on. There was something quite emotional about that input, and that's, I think that's part of leadership.
Yeah.
In this space going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And to I get to go around a lot of colleges, and I've been to BCOT several times, and you look at how the learners feel, and it is a very good vibe at BCOT. It's a very, very good vibe, and that's led by the leaders to deliver that. And I think that's just really important to give us feedback, because BCOT it's a nice place to walk around as a visitor. Do you know what I mean? It's good. We're over time, but I wanted to just wrap two more questions in. We've always asked dream big in 2 seasons, and I can't not ask it in the last episode of season 2. It's everyone's challenge. The Black Paradox is everyone's responsibility. I also pick up as well, courage and brave are 2 key terms that have come through with this. If you could dream and dream big, what would you want to see as a way for everyone to address the Black Paradox? Stella, what would you want to see?
Right. Gavin, our next step with the Black Leadership Group, or one of the objectives, is to create the Institute for Black Leadership. That's a big dream. It's a big dream. We're still dreaming it. But what I would like to see there is this Institute for Black Leadership, where it is that the things that matter, the things that we're talking about the courage and resilience and the change ability to stand up to be who you are, that institute really takes that forward. I have this dream of most of us in our Black communities in the BLG now. Most of us have this saying in our communities: it takes a village to raise a child. For me, it will take a community to raise a leader. And that's what I believe, what I would like to see the Institute for Black Leadership being, that community that raises leaders for this century.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Amajit, if you could dream big, what would you want to see?
Gosh, I'm just going to say, as part of that core curriculum for the Institute of Black Leadership, cultural competence is embedded in everything that we do.
Yeah, no, really cool. Robin, what would you want to see? What would you want to see when you could dream big on this?
Well, I think one of the things that was really well expressed by the attendance and the range of presentations at the conference was the collaborative approach to anti-racism, because it showed Black and white contributors on the same journey with the same challenge, wanting to work together. There were huge numbers of really big ambitions being expressed, and that to me was a sort of microcosm of what the UK could be if we worked to overcome this stain, the stain of racism, and to focus on what unites us. So to me, that's what a big dream would be, to see us putting the past behind us and actually working together to make our future a more prosperous and socially cohesive one.
Yeah, they're three really good ones.
If I may, Gavin, as well, I just did want to bring in, because when I opened the conference, I talked about a journey to Ithaca, which is a place that we all want to go to and journey on together. I just wanted to bring that notion of journeying together and learning together.
Yeah, definitely. I think what's really interesting is that if you look, we got choice. We got choices in life and in the world, and I think there's people are chosen for roles, or people should be celebrated for what they do by there being individuals with their life experience and their choices they make and how they live and the example that they set. And I think for me, what I'd love to see is a celebration of individuality, where we're all different but we've all got our own strengths, and we're all on a journey. Like you're saying, Stella, we're all on a journey. We're never going to make it completely perfect, but we can all only do it if we all come together. And I just want, for me, a celebration of individuality. Of if we're all the same, it would be so boring, and it'd also be rubbish. Do you know what I mean? If we're all robotic around what we do, what's the point? I think it's the celebration of individuality and our life experiences and what we could become. I think is something I'd love to see celebrated. So what next for BLG? So you let it out there, Stella, if anyone didn't go to the conference. So what next for the Black Leadership Group? What are the plans for the future? Amajit.
Very good question. Well, we are moving on from today. We're born as Black Leadership Group. That means a broader agenda. It means cross-sector. It means 4 nations. It means collaborations, including hopefully some global collaborations.
Yeah, cool.
But fundamentally to that is, I think, Robin's notion of we're the conduit. We bring people together, and people work together in order to create a better proposition for, I'm going to say this, students, young people who are entering the world of employment, and then society, will be better off as a result. So it's that broader agenda, really.
Yeah, no, definitely. Robin, what are you excited about for the next stage of BLG and the journey? I think it's exciting what's happening, really.
It is about the getting rid of the FE part has been part of the process, but not a process of discarding further education. Further education has been the leader in getting this anti-racism agenda going seriously on a national basis. So that's a source of pride and something we should never lose sight of. And that leadership will be needed as we develop the capacity and the potential of the Black Leadership Group. It's going to be a lot of hard work, and we want more people to share the load. But that's the exciting part. The potential is huge. It's almost unimaginable. But it's so exciting that it keeps old codgers like me going, Gavin.
Stella, how about you? What are you excited about for the next stage of BLG?
It is that growth. It is the different sectors. It's we have been a small team as the exec. It's about other people joining. We want to see small teams taking forward schools, taking forward higher education, taking forward any of the sectors that choose to come along alongside us, but keeping at the heart of it the values that were sort of developed by the BFELG going into BLG.
Yeah, no, that's great. So this is the end of the season. It isn't the end of the journey. It's just the end of this chapter. I've just been really, really privileged to be invited along the journey with you on this part so far. And I know it's not going to end here. And I just wanted to say thank you so much. I'm really excited to be able to see the progress. You can see it all coming together like beautifully. I think you're right. His potential is massive around sort of what you could do in charities, in FE, HE, schools. But then what does it mean to business? What does it mean around everything? We're a part of an ecosystem. We've really found out from looking at all of the different episodes in the season. Isn't it brilliant that FE has been the lead on that, to be able to bring that all together? And you're right, Robin, it is a source of pride that FE has got such impactful change. Is the place where change can happen, where second chances can happen, but also where we need to make fundamental change. And I just wish and hope and pray that this is going to be an amazing next step for BLG to be able to really make impactful change across all the UK PLC and that global objective as well. This has been a giant collaboration between it used to be BFLG, but now it's BLG and FE News. I hope everyone's really enjoyed these last 2 seasons, and it's going to be onwards and upwards to be able to see what the catastrophic growth you're going to be having and that fundamental change you're going to make to everyone. And I just hope everyone has felt inspired. And thank you for joining us for episode 7 of season 2. And we'll see you all really, really soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.